Hey, it's Julian coming to you with another legacy video. We are playing Elves tonight. And unfortunately, I already played the first round and OBS somehow stopped recording after the first couple of seconds and I didn't notice. But it didn't last very long. So what we are doing, in order not to waste the rest of the daily events, we are going back into the replay and I will record the first match from replay. So, we are on the playing Elves. This is the very traditional list that I used to play over the second half of 2017, I would say. No tribal force mages in this, so we're back to the crop rotation and the Caracas on the sideboard. The only change I made is to switch up the combo height. I'm playing 4 Thought Seizes and 2 Mind Break Traps, which feels a little more suitable to the online meta, because there's lots of Storm. And also, I like Thought Seize more than Cover Therapy against certain kind of decks, like show and tell decks, because they have like different ways to achieve whatever they want to do, and sometimes it feels like you're really walking a very, very thin line when trying to get them with Cover Therapy. Like, Cover Therapy is amazing if you have another way to see their hand, or also a way to force their hand, say through having Caracas, which requires them to usually have sneak attack. So right now I'm doing this split. The matchups where you are suffering are Stoneforge decks, because I really like bringing in just 2 or usually 2 Cover Therapies against Stoneforge decks. But what can you do? So I will just let this run and commentate. Like, this hand is pretty good. I really like it. It's got everything we need. It's got a really strong play on turn 2. The only thing is that, like, we are playing Green Sun Senate to maximize our equity of Glimpse of Nature on the next turn. If we were up against, say, Reanimator or something like that, then would be a little more problematic, because, like, not untapping Deathlight Champion in the second turn would feel horrible. But given the overall texture of our hand, I think getting Dryad Arbor is much better. Our opponent, interestingly, played Cover Therapy on Natural Order. I fully expected him to name Glimpse of Nature here, because there's very, very few scenarios where naming Natural Order here is actually better than naming Glimpse. And since he can't know, he should always name, like, the thing that hurts him more, or is more likely to hurt him, which is Cover Therapy, which is Glimpse of Nature. Because doing a lethal Natural Order on a second turn is rare. It's been done before, and it usually involves Nettle Sentinels, tapping for mana and then untapping and like hitting, but it's super rare. Whereas Glimpse of Nature, after an Accelerant on the first turn, that's something you want to name. The only scenario where you you can always name Natural Order on your second turn with the Cover Therapy. The only scenario where you don't want to play Natural Order on the second turn is when you're about to kill on the second turn. But even then, I don't really want to come across as condescending as I am right now, but even then, you would still name Glimpse of Nature, because it's the much more likely card to kill you. And if you were going to kill in the second turn anyway, turn 3 Natural Order kill is not what you care about anyway. So yeah, that's just my 2 cents. Okay, and now we'll just have this Glimpse run down. Nothing special, trying to maximize Gaia's Cradle by untapping Dryad Arbor first, and then adding a couple more guys to the board. I can tell you this Glimpse of Nature will already run out. We had 3.5 mana when we drew the Natural Order, but we couldn't really get there. But yeah, we passed the turn, and basically what he needs to do is to kill us here, because even if he goes for some reason double discard and takes down the Natural Order and the Glimpse of Nature, that we still have a board that probably beats almost everything he has. Our board has 3 activations of Deathlight Shaman and a pretty good clock, so we can control the graveyard for Past in Flames, you can control the life total for Ad Nauseam, at which point he can only kill us if he has the Tutor Chain, especially in the first game, where you can't, like, randomly, like, sometimes they can Abrupt Decay the Deathlight Shaman at your end of turn or something, and then you're like, shit, I just had all the control and I lost it, and then you lose, but not in the first game. So the only thing that we would really lose here if we had to pass the turn one more time is the Tutor Chain, which requires a lot of cards. And if he already fired off 2 discard spells, it's not very likely. And so I'm feeling super confident, like really, really confident in this position. The moment he plays an Infernal Tutor, of course. Before that, he could have still killed us with some combination of cards, of course. He gets a second Dark Ritual, I think or was it Cavalry Ritual? Let's see. Cavalry Ritual, yeah. He gets a second Cavalry Ritual, and we just do our thing. You know the drill.
Finish him!
We just get Mr. Big Guy. Where is he? Oh, we still have to pay for him. He doesn't show up without like proper payment. And he's pretty expensive. Like I heard somebody offered ABBA $1 billion for a reunion and they turned him down. Can you imagine being in a position where you can turn down $1 billion? Well, I guess.
Fatality.
And we take him down. At least the first game. So for the second game, I'm moving back to this, so you can see how many games there are, so I won't spoil anything. What I can tell you about... Oh no, wait. What I can tell you about sideboarding, I brought in 2 Mindbreak Traps, 2 Surgicals, 4 Thought Seizes, and a Scavenging Ooze, and I took out 2 Nissa, 2 Wirewood Symbiote, 1 Elfish Visionary, and 4 Glimpse of Nature. Bring in 4, 8, 9, so something like that. Oh, I've got it over here. So I brought in 4 Thoughtseize, 2 Surgical, 2 Mindbreak Trap, and a Scavenging Ooze makes it 9, and I took out 2 Nissa. Where's the rest? 2 Nissa, 4 Glimpses, 2 Wirewood Symbiote, and 1 Elfish Visionary. Exactly. The reason I keep the Reclamation Sage, which I used to sideboard out in the past, is they sometimes have Ground Seal, which is really problematic for us Elves players. Like really, really problematic. It's one of the biggest cards in the matchups. That doesn't outright kill us, but destroy our approach to disrupting them. And the other reason is when the games go long, they usually play Lions or Diamond and just put it on the board, and then you can punish that. Having said that, we are on the draw. We find ourselves on the draw, and we've got this hand. This hand is really good. Oh yeah, you can move that around. Replay is cute, because that's exactly what I did the moment I got that hand, like 10 minutes ago. So this hand is really good. The only thing it's missing is a Quirion Ranger. Like Quirion Ranger would be absolutely busted to draw here. It's basically free with the Bayou that we get to replay, and then we get to like play pretty much almost all of our hand, have Mindbreak Trap backup, and like a really good plan for his graveyard. Like I really like this position here. The opponent, what does he do? He plays Lotus Petal, which is usually either a really good or a really bad sign, depending on what he does afterwards. If they go for Ponder, you feel good. If they go for Brainstorm, you feel really good. And if they go for Dark Ritual, you feel fucked. He goes for Ponder, so I feel good. Does he shuffle? I don't even remember. He didn't shuffle, so I guess he found what he needed. And then he goes for Dark Ritual. You could actually consider Mindbreak Trapping this Dark Ritual, because if there's a discard spell follow afterwards, then you feel stupid. But what you have to consider is, if he actually had a discard spell here, wouldn't he just play the discard spell first? Especially if it's like Durus. I guess they often side out Durus, but I think I would still consider, like if it was just for those cards, I wouldn't mind. But since he's going for it here, and I think it makes perfect sense for him to go here, I will just let that first Dark Ritual resolve and just let him do whatever else he's doing. And he just keeps playing his mana artifacts, falling straight into our trap. And at this point in the real game, he paused for like 2 minutes, and I think he was considering whether he should play our own Surgical Extraction, because we kept 7 and haven't F6'd, and I guess there's always like the idea that we are faking to fake it, or maybe we are faking to fake it, depending on how many, like, around how many, in German we say around how many corners you are thinking. That's probably not something in English. So at this point he took forever to find something. So I figure he's trying to play around Surgical, which would mean he would get Ad Nauseam, which makes sense, because Ad Nauseam with 3 mana floating is pretty good. You could even consider like not cracking the LED for Ad Nauseam, but you also lost 1 Lotus Petal already, so I can see both sides. He ends up going for Ad Nauseam, I can already tell you. And we end up Mindbreak Trapping that. The reason we don't Mindbreak Trap the tutor is, if for some reason he actually comes back into the game, which given our hand is super unlikely, but maybe he draws like land, Pyroclasm. I think even then we are still pretty favored. But if that happens, for whatever reason, you never know, having him play the game with no Past in Flames left in his deck is much better than the card still being a thing for him. Most people don't play 2 Past in Flames. I think the only guy that I ever knew who played it at somewhat of a bigger stage is Rodrigo. I think he played... Did he play 2 Past in Flames in Prague? I think so. But I could be wrong. But overall, I wouldn't expect him to have a second Past in Flames. And also, if he takes a Nauseam, then he's kind of forced to go for either the Tutor Chain or the Past in Flames kill, which limits his options. So I like waiting, and I haven't encountered a spell yet that would punish me for waiting. So let's see. Oh yeah, I already realized I have to click the forward button a couple of times because he was waiting for so long. And he gives up. And we get like the perfect victory. We win without having a single permanent in play. The opponent has infinite more permanents than we have, but we took it down. So, this time it worked. See you next round. Man, that finger movement is so embarrassing, right?